Times are tough for the wealthy. While China's cracking down on them over there, New York City is also taking aim at the rich. So what exactly is the situation? How should we really view the wealthy? Today, Fang Wei has a golden nugget of wisdom for all our friends. Also, there's a major shift in a key battleground of the United States midterms, mail-in ballots. Both sides are taking it straight to the Supreme Court, forcing them to weigh in immediately. What's this all about? And are you familiar with the Wang Hong case? Is this something you're following? But today, Fang Wei wants to share the most important tip for parenting. What is the ultimate secret to raising children? I'll tell you today. Welcome to Good Morning America with Fang Wei. Hello to our YouTube viewers and greetings to our listeners on Sound of Hope, Silicon Valley FM 961. Let's get right to it. First, let's talk about the situation in the Middle East. After the United States paused its airstrikes on Iran, the conflict hasn't actually cooled down. Countries like Saudi Arabia say they're still being attacked by Iranian drones. And the United States warns that if negotiations fail, military action will resume. Meanwhile, two other things are happening. Iran and Oman are drafting an agreement to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. They've reportedly been talking all weekend. What are they discussing? Well, they have different views. Iran insists on controlling the strait and being able to collect fees. But Oman suggests looking at the management model of the Malacca and Singapore Straits. There, Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia use a cooperative framework to jointly manage those vital shipping lanes. The idea is to have Gulf nations manage it together, creating a joint fee mechanism. It wouldn't just be the United States or just Iran in charge. How about that? Regardless, Iran hopes to reach a peace agreement before the United States midterm elections. Iran's intent is clear. They believe President Trump can't afford gas prices over $4 before the midterms. So now's the perfect time to put pressure on President Trump. On another note, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is in the United States for the United Nations General Assembly and will meet with President Trump at the White House today. What kind of consensus they'll reach on Iran is now the focus of international attention. Also, United States Special Forces and the CIA are searching in Iran for Khamenei II, Khamenei's son and current supreme leader. Their orders are to shoot on sight. All right, that's a quick look at the situation in the Middle East. Now, let's look at what's happening in New York. In New York, it's like tax the rich and redistribute. Wait, no, it's targeting the wealthy. What's going on? Fox News reports that New York's mayor, Mamdani, after announcing a tax on second homes in the city, meaning if the wealthy have a second home worth over $5 million, they'll face a special tax. After announcing this tax, he's opened up a new front. He said his administration released a searchable database listing all wealthy property owners required to pay the city's second home tax, making it public for everyone to see. This move has caused quite a stir because, well, this has basically become the latest flashpoint in the tension between Mamdani and New York City's wealthiest residents. Critics of this move are saying, how can you do this? It's like putting the wealthy on public display. Will this threaten the safety of these wealthy individuals or lead to people harassing them at their homes? But a city spokesperson said that publishing property rolls is required by state law. This information was already public, so they haven't done anything out of the ordinary. Well, however, critics argue that releasing this kind of targeted database goes far beyond the traditional practice of public government records. Consolidating the names and addresses of wealthy property owners into a single, easily searchable location could create new privacy and security risks. The president of the Real Estate Board of New York, James Whelan, said that not only that, but the list in his database actually goes far beyond so-called ultra-wealthy residents. Because Mamdani initially said they were targeting second homes in New York worth over $5 million, owned by the ultra-wealthy and the global elite for taxation. But after the media scrutinized the list, the database was found to include nearly 1 million homes. Many of them aren't worth anywhere near $5 million. Yet, the owner's information, names, and addresses are all listed there for the public to see. So it significantly exceeds the scope of owners that the pied-à-terre tax was originally intended to cover. What the database actually shows, as the president of the Real Estate Board of New York put it, is that the published list is much broader and more complex than initially stated. It includes many, many New York property owners who don't fit the ultra-wealthy profile targeted by this tax. So, of course, this conflict has sparked a broader debate about whether New York might end up driving away the wealthy residents and businesses that support its economy. Didn't he once stand in front of the home of New York hedge fund tycoon Ken Griffin to shame him? Now, Griffin's wealth is $50 billion. According to Fortune magazine, he built one of the world's largest hedge funds in Chicago and helped the city become a global financial center. But in 2022, 4 years ago, he moved the global headquarters of his hedge fund, Citadel, from Chicago to Miami, Florida. The reasons were Chicago's tax policies, its crime rates, and a deteriorating business environment. This relocation marked a complete break between Griffin and Chicago. Now, Griffin is saying outright that if New York's policymakers continue to push what he considers anti-wealthy policies, New York could face similar consequences. Now, I'll just make a quick comment here. Clearly, this move targets New York's wealthy, aiming to shame them and apply public pressure. Under these circumstances, won't they just leave? So, indeed, the core of the public debate in New York City right now is whether the city can demand more from its wealthiest residents without eroding its own tax base. That's a bit of a mouthful. What does not eroding the tax base mean? It means not undermining those who pay taxes, or in other words, not driving the wealthy away. So whether this has consequences or not is what everyone is debating. And what do you think? Is there even a debate? Isn't it obvious? Of course there are consequences. All right, I'd like to share a quote with you from the famous American economist and social theorist Thomas Sowell. He's a highly respected Black intellectual. He once said, "I have never understood why wanting to keep the money you earned is called greed, while wanting to take someone else's money to give to others is called goodwill." Do you think what he said holds any water? Isn't it simple yet profound? Because in America, under the market mechanism, if you work hard, innovate, and have a bit of luck, you can become very wealthy. You play by the rules and become rich, and then you're labeled as a greedy person. While others use various methods, like the one Mandani used, to take money from you and give it to the poor, taking what belongs to others, and they're called compassionate. Doesn't this fly in the face of common sense? Those who build wealth by the rules are acting lawfully, yet taking money from others is now being framed as an act of goodwill. So bad becomes good and good becomes bad. That's the situation we're seeing now. I wonder what your thoughts are. All right, for those who love to travel or travel frequently, you might want to consider this option. Okay, let's move on to our news for today. Now, yesterday, President Trump filed an emergency application with the U.S. Supreme Court seeking to overturn a lower court's injunction regarding mail-in ballots. Let me give you a quick recap of the situation. A few months ago, President Trump issued Executive Order 14399. Addressing the widespread mail-in voting methods used by states, he issued a directive requiring states to submit their voter lists to the U.S. Postal Service. These would be cross-referenced with federal citizenship records, and then the verified lists would be sent back to the states. What does that mean? It means purging non-citizens from the mail-in ballot lists, ensuring that ballots are only sent to eligible citizens. That's the gist of it. Sounds like a perfectly reasonable thing to do. However, 23 Democratic-led states, along with D.C., have challenged this in federal court. Those 23 states and D.C. represent all the Democratic-led regions in the country. They filed lawsuits in multiple jurisdictions, which shows just how significant this issue has become. I've told you many times, there are 4 battlegrounds for this election. The main one is the Save America Act. The other 3 are called minor battlegrounds, but they're actually mid-sized. One is how the election map is drawn, second is how the election date is calculated, and third is whether mail-in ballots can be cast. That's the situation. All right, so this involves the third one of those. Now, 23 Democratic states and D.C. are arguing that, hey, elections are a state matter involving privacy, so they can't give this list to the federal government. My goodness, you're electing the federal government, yet you want to hide your voter list from them? Does that make any sense? But anyway, this lawsuit requested that the court issue an injunction against Trump's executive order, basically saying you can't do this. In various district courts across the country, the rulings came down and Trump lost them all. As a result, 2 weeks ago, Trump's side won one. The D.C. Court of Appeals ruled that Trump could indeed do this. Then, just the day before yesterday, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the First Circuit, which oversees Massachusetts, ruled that the U.S. Postal Service cannot do this and issued an injunction. Their reasoning was that if this postal action were taken before November, it might cause chaos in election management. But regardless, the D.C. Court of Appeals is an appellate court, and the First Circuit is also an appellate court. Their rulings are completely contradictory. As you know, there are 13 appellate courts in the U.S., 12 are regional circuit courts, each handling its own area, numbered 1 through 12. Then there's the special one for the capital, the D.C. Court of Appeals. So now, basically, the First Circuit and the D.C. Court of Appeals are at odds. One rules one way, the other rules the opposite. And the result? The result is a conflict, right? And there's only one body above them that can resolve this, which is the U.S. Supreme Court. So President Trump recently rushed to file an emergency application with the Supreme Court because we're only 3.5 months away from the midterms. Actually, less than 3 months and 10 days. So he's urging the Supreme Court to immediately stay the injunction and allow that executive order I mentioned to go back into effect right away. So the Supreme Court is facing a very big, challenge to handle this matter immediately. We'll see if they take it up. So this is a very important matter regarding the midterms. All right, next let's talk about the Wang Hong incident. The Wang Hong incident continues to escalate. What can we learn from it? First, let me ask you all, have you heard about the Wang Hong incident? Are you interested? I get the feeling that those of us in independent media are very interested, but many of you might not be as interested. But regardless, whether you're interested or not, I think what I'm sharing today is well worth knowing because it involves an important approach to raising children and parenting. Yeah, I'll do a quick recap since I spoke with you all about it last night. Just a very brief recap. This Wang Hong is a Chinese girl born in 1991 in Pingles City, Guilin, Guangdong. Her parents are both middle school teachers, and her father teaches math. She showed a talent for math from a young age, so back then, as a child, she solved math problems even faster than her father did. So she demonstrated a very strong talent for mathematics. Then at 13, she skipped grades to enter high school, and at 16, she was admitted to Peking University. But when she got into Peking University, it was truly full of talent. So after she entered, she actually wasn't in the math department. Her scores weren't high enough, so she was in what's called the geospatial department, or Earth and Space Sciences. And then later, she worked really hard to transfer back to the math department. At Peking University, surrounded by all that talent, she was basically unknown. Not only did her classmates look down on her, but the teachers didn't necessarily appreciate her either. She said that on her homework, the answers were all red X's. It even drove her to the top floor, to the restroom on the top floor of the teaching building to have a good cry. So she even started to waver about the math she loved, thinking about dropping out or changing her major. And then, after graduating from Peking University, she couldn't be recommended for graduate school, to be a graduate student at Peking University. Fortunately, her dream of studying abroad eventually came true, and she went to France. She went to France for her master's, then to MIT for her PhD, and then to UCLA, which is the University of California, Los Angeles, and New York University to teach. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, when she was applying to France, the math department didn't give her a recommendation letter, the Earth and Space department did. That wasn't quite accurate. I checked later, and it's very likely that both sides gave her one, so she ended up with an extra recommendation letter. So that's just a small detail, of course. The key is that after she went to France for her master's and to MIT for her PhD, she met mentors who were very encouraging and entered an environment with a relaxed academic atmosphere. It was like a seedling getting water, and she began to thrive. And then last year and the year before, she collaborated with others and solved a century-old math problem. Because of that, she received the Fields, what's called the Nobel Prize of the math world, the Fields Medal. That's why she has become such a topic of conversation now. That's roughly how it went. I'll raise a few related questions that we should reflect on or summarize from this. I'd like to hear everyone's thoughts. I think the first thing to reflect on or summarize is that people must do what they love. Because, why is that? Because it's very simple. You don't get tired easily. Since you don't get tired easily, you're less likely to give up. And many things are actually achieved just by doing them over and over again. You don't necessarily have to be a once-in-a-generation genius to achieve something like that. This is the very traditional story of the tortoise and the hare. The hare is very smart, very good at hopping and jumping, but after running for a bit, it doesn't run to the end and just disappears. The one who succeeds is often the tortoise who keeps going all the way to the finish line. This kind of fable is actually absolutely true in many situations. Okay, so there's a problem here. Choosing to do what you love is, to be honest, a luxury for most people in this world. Don't you all agree? I'm asking you, do you feel like what you're doing, your job, is what you love most? Could you leave a comment? Let's do a quick poll, okay? Is what you're doing right now what you love doing most? Let's see how lucky we are among our audience members. Let's do a poll. So why is it a luxury? Because there are many other factors, right? Like the social atmosphere. When I was in college, back in high school, we were tracked, right? Split into science and liberal arts. I was actually interested in liberal arts, but I didn't dare choose it because my dad told me, master math and science and you'll be set for life. What he really thought was, if you study arts, you might end up in prison one day, in prison in China. So studying math and science was the political correctness at that time. So that's one reason. The second is, of course, parental expectations, right? Parents always feel what their children should study. If a parent is a lawyer, they want the kid to be a lawyer. If they're an entrepreneur, they want the kid to be one too. But is the parent's expectation your child's passion? That's a good question. Let me tell you a story about Buffett. Buffett has 3 children, and his second son is Howard Buffett. This Howard didn't like investing. He loved planting things since he was little. When he was 5, at their home, Buffett's home in Nebraska, he started his own cornfield in their backyard. So since childhood, he's been fascinated by soil, nature, and tractors. As it turned out, his father Buffett saw that his second son wasn't interested in his own investment industry. It's okay, as long as you like it. So Buffett just let him develop on his own. So when Howard was young, he started thinking about farming. Buffett didn't just buy a farm for him. Buffett bought a farm and then said, you pay me rent and I'll let you farm this land. That is to say, Howard leased it from his father to farm. So Buffett was the landlord and Howard was the tenant farmer. That's how it was. So this was teaching his son to be self-reliant, not to rely on family inheritance, that kind of value. So Howard majored in agriculture and environmental science in college, turning his childhood interest into his profession. Later, he ran a farm in Illinois, a 1,500-acre farm. That's really big, 1,500 acres. That's almost like a small city. Also, he has farmland in Nebraska and Arizona. He does experiments on his land, promoting conservation tillage, crop rotation, what's called precision agriculture, and other farming technologies. He also went to the global agricultural giant ADM and served as an executive there, learning knowledge about agricultural management. What else did he do? He was also elected as a county commissioner in Douglas County, Nebraska, where he lived. Then 9 years ago, in 2017, he also served as the sheriff of Macon County, Illinois. He was the sheriff. Why did Buffett's second son become a sheriff? Because he's long been concerned with drug trafficking, concerned with border security, rural crime, and mental health issues. Just because he liked it, he became a sheriff. He ran for sheriff. So Buffett gave his 3 children, he gave each of them billions of dollars to do charity work, to see what they could achieve. As a result, Howard invested it in food security and hunger relief, as well as in aid and reconstruction in conflict zones around the world, yeah. He's invested money in the Congo and Sudan and in Central America. He's invested money there. And in recent years, he's also provided large-scale aid to Ukraine, helping Ukrainians with demining, providing food and farming, and reconstruction. He also invested in what's called wildlife conservation and anti-poaching. All in all, his charitable work has been very successful and impressive. He also likes photography. Because of his charity work, he travels all over the world. He's even published several photography books on wildlife and global issues, using his lens to document the world he cares about. You see, this is a very ordinary person, very ordinary, and also very diverse, doing things he's very passionate about. And then this story has an ending, and this ending is just the climax. In 2025, Buffett announced he was passing the torch, retiring, and chose Greg Abel to succeed him as the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, the CEO of his investment company. But he arranged for his second son, Howard, whom others called the world's farmer, to be the chairman. Now, Howard doesn't know anything about investing, right? He didn't pick him to manage the company or pick stocks, because that's not his expertise. What his father valued was that Howard wouldn't interfere in daily operations. His role is to protect Berkshire's, his investment companies, corporate culture, and values. So this son, although he doesn't know how to pick stocks, he is a person of integrity and well-roundedness. His father, Buffett, valued his character. This second son is pragmatic, values-oriented, and not interested in vanity. As a result, even though he started in agriculture and stayed in it, he eventually became the ultimate boss of one of the world's largest investment companies. Don't you think this story is very interesting? Yeah, this story is actually, I think, the story of many people, including Wang Hong's story. Don't you all agree? Okay, so my advice to everyone is that in parenting, we should really let them learn and do what they love, and not use our own views to judge for them or make decisions for them. And then another point of interest is why Peking University alumni succeed abroad, including another one who won the Fields Medal. His name is Deng Yu, and he was actually in the same grade as Wang Hong. Why did he also studied abroad, did his PhD, and finally succeeded abroad and won the Fields Medal? So why do Peking University alumni succeed abroad? What's wrong with Peking University itself? Rather than saying, I think there's a problem with Peking University, I'd say it's a problem with China. Because to be honest, Peking University has so many talents and they're all very outstanding. You know that I went to Fudan University for college. The year I went to Fudan, 1986, what was my score on the college entrance exam? It was 620 points. I thought, wow, I scored so high, because in Hubei province, our computer science department only took 2 people. I figured I must be the top, but I didn't get into the software major I wanted. They put me in hardware instead. I was really angry. I thought it was unfair that someone cheated and pushed me out. I said, I scored 620 points. How could it be possible that I couldn't get into the software field? After I got to Fudan, they eventually switched me to the software field. The department was very respectful of me. But then I found out that I was actually only 3rd. It just goes to show there's always someone better. So I really didn't score as high as I thought. But what I mean is that whether it's Peking University or Fudan, these schools attract the best of the best. There's no problem with the people. A few days ago, I had a conversation with the Taiwanese economist Wu Jielong. Many people watch that program, right? He told me that China really has a lot of talent and capable people. If you give them the technology, they're top-notch at copying. But there's one thing they can't do: innovate. He said that Taiwan is only a fraction of the size of mainland China, strictly speaking, 1/50th, right? But we were able to create TSMC and so many manufacturing process patents. He said TSMC isn't just copying. We have many of our own patents and innovations. But China can't do that. China has poached many key people from TSMC, offering them several times or even 10 times the salary, but they still can't build a second TSMC. Why is that? He said it's because China lacks freedom. Only with freedom can there be innovation. So TSMC is like this. And isn't Wang Hong the same way? So from Wang Hong's experience, we see that China and Peking University are full of talent, second to none. But because this country lacks freedom, all voices are silenced. The Nobel Prize and the Fields Medal are both for rewarding innovation, aren't they? A country without innovation can never be number one, right? You'll always be copying others. Of course, for China's current economy, it's not about being number one. It's really about the risk of falling back into poverty. And that relates to our next news story. Okay, now let's talk about the situation of China's wealthy. Yesterday, I explained in detail how the CCP is going after offshore trusts and offshore funds. The new policy has three main points, right? First, no more open and offshore shell companies. Second, money earned from selling stocks on overseas markets must be remitted back to China. No overseas assets are allowed, which means, no saving money abroad. Third, taxes must be paid on money already earned, or back taxes must be settled. After I finished that program, I received a lot of feedback from viewers, including many questions. So many viewers still don't quite understand. Let me clarify what this policy actually means. First, some viewers are wondering, since the money's already out of the country, how can the CCP see it? What's the answer? The answer is that since 2018, the CCP government has used the CRS, the Common Reporting Standard, to automatically exchange financial account data with over 100 countries and regions. This includes the Caymans, the BVI, and obviously Hong Kong and Singapore. Account balances, dividends, and stock sale proceeds are sent back to Beijing automatically every year. So, in short, this net was already woven back in 2018. The data has been sitting in the hands of the Tax Bureau for a long time, and they're just starting to use it now. Second, I said yesterday that the crackdown was limited to a few thousand Chinese billionaires. That wasn't accurate. The scope is expanded to the middle class, executives at foreign firms, and people with overseas brokerage accounts trading US and Hong Kong stocks. It basically covers transnational families. They're all within the scope of this crackdown. So in a nutshell, it's not just about people like Jack Ma. If you open an account overseas to trade stocks, this net can catch you just the same. Thirdly, some people think they're safe if they change their passport. They think, I'm a foreigner now, they can't touch me. That's a huge misconception. Because the CCP determines your tax liability based on your status as a tax resident, not your nationality. As long as you have a residence in China, or a household registration, or property, or economic interests, or if you stay for 183 days in a year, your global income is subject to Chinese taxes. Having a green card, a US passport, or any foreign passport doesn't exempt you. Even if not a single cent is remitted to China, it still counts. Now, you might say, what if I just don't go back to China? You might be out, but are your parents still there? Is your house still there? Is your business still there? So you might still be considered a tax resident. Simply put, if they have leverage over you, they can force you to pay taxes or force you to remit your money back. And then there's the retroactivity of the settling of scores. Laws in many countries don't look back, but this time, this round starts with self-inspections of overseas income from 2022 to 2024, 22, 23, and 24. Generally, back taxes are pursued for 3 years, and regulatory bodies can extend that to 5 years. But once it's classified as tax evasion, the look-back period is indefinite.